The August 26, 2025 meeting of the Environment Committee to order. And at our last meeting, we read the Dakota Land, Water, and People Acknowledgement, and our habit here in Environment Committee is to do it once a quarter. So just keep, get your attention to that, and we will move on with our regular business. Next up is approval of the agenda. Is there any concerns with the agenda as posted? Then we will consider it approved. And then we have the approval of the July 8th, 2025 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion and a second for the minutes?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We have minutes. Thank you. We have no consent business, so we'll move on to the non-consent business. First up is 2025-198, same week, White Bear Lake Comprehensive Plan Contract 24P055, Amendment 1. Ms. Fentek, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Wolf, committee members. So I'm Judy Fentek, manager of the Water Resources Group, and I'm here today to present on business item 2025-198, same week. So this item is related to our White Bear Lake funding. So in 2023, the Minnesota legislature appropriated $2 million to the Metropolitan Council to develop a comprehensive plan to ensure communities in the White Bear Lake area have access to sufficient and safe drinking water while they're allowing to plan for growth, as while they're protecting the sustainability of surface water and groundwater resources in the region. As part of that legislation, a work group was established to help guide this work. It was made up of designees of the commissioners from the DNR, the Health Department, and the PCA. It has representatives from MOSAC, which is currently a vacant position, but we'll get that filled soon, hopefully. It has a member from the St. Paul Regional Water Services, and then the 14 communities that affect White Bear Lake water levels the most. So our original contract awards were we awarded 3 contracts of $500,000 each to Bar Engineering, Kimley Horn, and SEH. So in 2025, the legislature provided the council with an additional $750,000 for this to support this work. So we've been working on studies over the last couple of years. It's clear that we need this additional funding to do the extra studies that we need to do. So we're very glad we got the extra money. And today I'm here to talk to you about how we would like to allocate that money. So in a minute, I'll show you how we're going to allocate the $450,000, but I wanted to update you on the rest of it. So approximately $250,000 of that $750,000 that we were allocated would be used to fund staff time, to manage the overall projects, and just working on different studies of the project. And then there's another $50,000 that we were proposing that will go to the financial contract consultant with Hazen and Sawyer. And that contract was under $500,000, so does not need to have council action to amend it, but I wanted you to be aware of that. And then the rest of the money is proposed to be sent this way. So what my action today is that the Met Council authorizes its regional administrator to execute an amendment for contract 24P056A through C that will add $450,000 for water supply studies and technical analysis for the White Bear Lake Area Comprehensive Plan as follows. Basically adding $250,000 to the Bar Engineering contract, $100,000 to the Kimley Horn project, and $100,000 to the SEH contract. Are there any questions?
Questions?
I've got an informational one, so more for me as a new person, but being familiar with Project 1007, how does this connect with that? Just informational for me.
Chair Wolf, Councilmember Jenkins, Project 1007 is a study that is being done. It's one of our, I think we have like 18 studies now that we're looking at. So that is a study that's being done by the Health Department. It feeds into the overall work of this group. So we're looking at Project 1007 as a way to see if there's a water source that we can reuse the treated water from the PFAS settlement.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are these going to be funding studies 19, 20, and 21, or more supplementing the first
Sure.
18?
Chair Wolf, Councilmember Lindstrom, these will be funding some new studies, but they're also were needed to kind of finish up kind of like phase 2, part 2 of some of the current studies that we have going on. So we have not bid out or sent out work orders for all the current studies that we have, so that will help let us, fulfill those rest of those orders. So.
Any other questions? Then we would be in need of a motion for the staff's proposed action.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is 2025-210 Master Contract for Sustainability Services, project number 24P275. And we still have Ms. Fentek. Thank you.
Yes, you do. Chair Wolf, council members. So here I am, for this contract, I'm to get your approval for awarding master contracts for water supply and water sustainability services totaling $4 million. What I'm going to go over is a little bit of background on the project, so share the proposed action right away, and then kind of go back to that with the background, and then go back to that proposed action, and then ask any questions. So this is going to be the proposed action is that at a quick glance, you'll see that we're awarding $4 million to these 4 firms. I'll get into the details at the end. I wanted to give you a little bit of background. So we use a master contract to support our water supply and sustainability work through studies that we do, modeling and other deliverables. The Water Council's water supply planning work is mainly funded by Clean Water Funds, which this is from. That's a funding source for these contracts. This is using fiscal year 24, 25, 26, and 27 funding, and then it will allow us to broaden our work to cover also sustainability work in addition to water supply work. This funding supports technical studies, planning work, reports that we prepare, other activities, projects, and anything that really kind of comes up throughout that 4-year period. We get recommendations from our Metro Area Water Supply Advisory Committee and the Technical Advisory Committee, our regional, sub-regional groups on different projects we need to do, and those are the types of things that we can fund with this work. This slide covers some links to the documents guiding and tied to this funding. These documents include many areas of proposed work that we will be funding, as I mentioned, and are really support of the MOSAC and technical advisory and work we do in our, implementing our water policy plan. So the $4 million we are awarding as part of this proposed action all comes from the Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment. And as I mentioned, it includes fiscal year 24, 25, 26, and 27 supports. And then it'll cover a 4-year period of being able to do the work. And it's really going to be looking at supporting technical assistance to support implementation of projects addressing emerging water supply concerns, sustainability projects, cost effectiveness for regional solutions around water supply and water sustainability, things around groundwater, surface water interaction, and other projects to be determined yet. So the RFP included 6 areas of expertise that we asked for. They're on the screen. So we were looking for water resource expertise, assessment expertise, water and reuse, usage and knowledge. I'm talking this as like water supply usage, infrastructure analysis, environmental impacts, assessment work, and socioeconomic assessment. Proposals were ranked on the ability of firms to meet these 6 main areas. And then projects will be directed by the groups that I mentioned before, which is the MOSAC TAC membership, as well as the sub-regional work group. So we will have kind of this advisory group as well as others to help guide the projects that we choose with that $4 million. The RFP process included the review of all proposals by a panel of council member staff. RFPs were ranked and reviewed based on quality of the proposal, qualifications of the proposer, experience of the proposer, and price of the proposal. Our Office of OEEO also was consulted on this early in the process and assigned a 16% MCUB goal for this work. And OEEO determined as well that the firms being recommended for this award met the council's MCUB requirements of this contract. So the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contracts 24P275A through D for technical consultant services that will support environmental services water sustainability program, an amount not to exceed $4 million as follows. We're recommending $1.1 million for fire engineering, $1.1 million for Kimley Horn and Associates, $1.1 million for HDR, and then $700,000 for Carollo Engineers. And with that, I can take any questions.
Are there any questions? Not seeing any, then we would be in need of a motion and a second for the staff recommendation.
So moved?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say all. Say aye.
All aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us through all of our consent business. So we have information items. First up is intern presentations. Who's going to lead that one off? Welcome.
Chairwoman, council members. My name is Othman Saimi. I'm the coordinator for the internship program at DAS Environmental Services, and I'm honored to introduce our 5 interns today that will be doing presentations for you for their capstones. Each of them will have about 10 minutes and with questions included. We are excited to have them talk to you, all of you. And without further ado, I'll introduce Allison Wayman, who will be our first intern.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Uh-oh, it'll come back.
There you go.
Nope, nope, get
Nope,
wrong
not
one.
yet.
Thought your internship was about parrots. That'd be
That would be
cool.
very fun.
Yeah.
Today I will be presenting the municipal wastewater charge and data analysis. My name is Allison Wayman, and I am currently a junior enrolled at the University of St. Thomas, majoring in civil engineering. In my free time, I enjoy skiing, hanging out with my dog, swimming, and traveling. The current method surrounding the municipal wastewater charge is based off of a 2-year delay where the percent of the total regional flow is then applied to the share of the total regional cost to determine a community's cost for that year, 2 years in the future. This is outlined because of the 1972 Clean Water Act, which states that it's required for a proportionate share of a company's to be had if they received funding in the 70s or 80s, and the Met Council received funding in the 70s. The new method we are possibly looking at is having the municipal waste charge of data be averaged over a 3-year time period for the flow. This is an example for 2018, 2019, and 2020. The average value would then become the value for 2020. And this would be the same for the regional flow. This is important because for the 111 communities that are currently served with the MWC method, there is a lot of high and low swings between wet and dry years due to inflow and infiltration, which is water entering in the sanitary sewer interceptors and causing a higher flow rate than what is actually being produced with the sewer. And then some communities can see a higher cost even with less flow, which is because of it being a percent of the total regional flow. Here's where it is stated in the Clean Water Act. So applying this new method, it is shown in the green line when the flow was averaged between the years. Minneapolis was chosen because it is one of the major cities in the metropolitan area, and it has a large amount of flow and a large cost. So they see very drastic changes when, for example, between 24 and 25, there was an almost 10% increase in the flow. St. Paul was also chosen because of it being one of the other major largest cities. And as you can see here, it also levels out with the proposed method. Golden Valley was chosen because it includes estimated flow areas where flows are unmetered, and it is with partnership of Met Council and the communities to determine the method of how they're going to estimate the flow traveling through that area, which it also levels out. And then Champlin was chosen because it is a no-growth community where it's had very little growth over the last couple of years. So it's entirely dependent on I&I, which is inflow and infiltration. And again, it is steadier. So conclusions and next steps. The average method does smooth out the percent change of cost and is a current point in analysis. Further analysis is needed for all communities in all methods, which is flow volume, percent change in cost, and the total cost per year. This is needed so then we can see the possible advantages for each community, which could relate to reducing sticker shock for the community's bill, helping with local budgeting planning, and then communicate with communities on determining possible disadvantages. Are there any questions? Yes.
I'd just like to know what sort of outreach or was any outreach done with the local communities to get their feedback in terms of these two methods?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. No local outreach has been completed as of this moment. We were just playing around with numbers to see how they would all look. In the future steps, we're looking at maybe creating a task force and proceeding from there.
Okay, because the only reason I raised that is because this has been a question that obviously has come up recently, so I'm looking forward to seeing further steps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, and one of the other things that has come up with regards to this is what happens in a rapidly growing community. If you average it out, then they aren't actually paying their full freight because of the growth. Whereas, Champlin, where you were talking about where it's flat, they don't really have a change from year to year. But if you have a very rapidly growing community or you add a big user, you'd kind of get a little free sewer in your bill.
A little while.
Councilmember
And yet
Lindstrom?
some places you have some unmetered flow too. And that's been some questions, especially when it's shared between two entities, one city and another, or one small town and another.
Councilmember Lindstrom?
Thanks, and that goes to my question, is you did a great job outlining some of the advantages. I'm curious to know if you believe there's any disadvantages.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. At this current moment, we are still looking into seeing if there's possible disadvantages, which would be found in some of the other methods we were looking at, such as the total flow volume between communities and then the total cost on a dollar amount, because the percent change in cost might relate to higher numbers on a numerical value.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Welcome, Evan.
Good evening, Ms. Chair and committee members. My project was on sludge dewatering optimization. So a little bit about myself. My name is Evan Leeser. I'm a student at St. Cloud State University. I'm a senior. I'm majoring in environmental engineering with a minor in hydrology. Some of my hobbies include hiking, rock climbing, painting, and esports. And the two pictures in the middle are actually paintings that I've done. I like painting in oil and acrylic. It's very fun. And then I had two things that I sort of worked on throughout the summer. The first project being the sludge dewatering optimization, and then a second little bit of work with Seneca to work on an inhibition. So the sludge dewatering overview is Metropolitan Council has the Metro plant, of course, in St. Paul, and their current methods for dealing with the solids train is sludge dewatering and incineration. So the way that method works is they start by introducing a polymer which binds the solids in the sludge. This is a crucial step for dewatering. And in the budget, there is currently $4.5 to $5.4 million spent annually here, with an actual average of the past 3 years being about $3.4 million. And after that sludge is dosed with that chemical polymer, it enters the centrifuge. The centrifuge then spins it very, very quickly and that helps separate the solids from the liquids. This creates what we call in the wastewater industry cake. The cake is then sent to the incinerator where it can burn. And as a general rule of thumb, the drier the cake, the better you're gonna burn. So how do we reduce the polymer usage? Because this is a massive chemical cost for the Metro plant, and we want to reduce it as much as possible. Currently, with incineration, there is excess heat available that could be used. So we were looking at finding an optimal temperature where we can reduce our polymer usage, but still maintain good dewaterability in that sludge. So this is a lot of information, so I'm gonna break it down slowly and one at a time. So if we look at the x-axis, the dose is it in pounds of active solid per dry ton, which is basically just how much polymer are you adding for your sludge. And of course, we want to reduce that because the more we put that down, the more money we are saving. And then on the y-axis, we have percent total solids. That's how well are you dewatering your sludge? Are you actually getting the water out of it? The good burning point happens at about 27% plus or minus 0.5%. The goal was to reduce it from the Metro plant average dose of 11 pounds of active solids per dry ton and see if we could reduce it any amount. Over our tests, we tested various different heated temperatures for the polymer solution before we dose it into the sludge. And as you can see, the results for about 30 degrees and 40 degrees C were able to achieve the Metro plant average percent total solids of 27% with a lower dose of about 7.4, 7.3. That is up to a 33% dose reduction. That looks like great news. However, these trials were done across different days. We did a control alongside each and every single trial, and the controls varied a lot day to day. At the end of the day, what is coming into the plant, we can't entirely control, so there's a lot of variation of the contents of the sludge. And even this brought up questions on how precise was our laboratory method in actually imitating the real process that's going on in the solids Metro building. And then the second thing that I helped assist working on was an opportunity at the Seneca plant. There was cyanide inhibition happening on the nitrifiers, so your nitrite was not converting to nitrate. We ended up creating batch tests, which is basically small little jars of wastewater where we would try and recreate the issue. We would try and imitate the full scale plant on a lab scale basis. And in order to do that, we had to sample the wastewater so that way we could get it into those jars, and we had to sample what was causing this inhibition, and we found out that it was the cyanide. So then we started doing some treatment exploration for how to treat this stream of cyanide that's being generated within the plant. This was my favorite part of the internship. It really allowed me to work closely with a team of engineers and collaborate with other sections of environmental services, including the lab at Metro, operations, of course, at Seneca, even a little bit with industrial waste at the Metro plant. So it was really eye-opening to me to be able to get that greater experience and to be able to see what the council does as a whole to help solve problems. Both of these have real implications on Met Council. Seneca, of course, I helped inform plant operations and help assist future problem prevention. And then with dewatering, it sets up further research for heating possibly the sludge instead of the polymer. Is there an optimal temperature where we can use the excess heat from incineration to possibly see if the sludge temperature makes a difference on the binding? Or even ask questions, how could we possibly implement infrastructure for heating if we do get 33% dose reduction, or if it is up to that much, because that is, a lot of dose that you're reducing across that $3.4 million budget. And then, of course, that possible cost savings is that goal to see if we can, with further research, set up some infrastructure in the plant to reduce our polymer usage. The impacts on me, I really enjoyed my time here. It allowed me to have that teamwork and collaborations with a team of engineers and do some problem solving that was very applicable to real life. And it, for me, confirmed my interest in wastewater and continuing to serve communities no matter where I end up. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so what's the primary cause of the cyanide in the water? Because that's a pre-existing problem, right?
Thank you, Ms. Chair and committee members, for the question. The primary cause of cyanide in the water here was incomplete combustion in a multiple hearth incinerator that would not get rid of all the organic compounds, and then it would generate cyanide. The cyanide would then be captured in our air pollution control train, and that is discharged then back into the plant as a recycle stream. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So how do you fix that?
Thank you, Ms. Chair and committee members, for your question. That is something that we currently were trying to figure out because we didn't have a long-term solution in place. We were able to help operations get back to normal of sorts, but we are looking at long-term solutions still for that treatment.
Thank you. Other questions? Fascinating stuff. I think you've given us good things to continue work on. The idea that we could save 33% on our polymers it would be a nice one. That would be a great thing for our ratepayers. Thank you.
Very nice.
Next up, we have Peter Miller. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members, for being here. Introduction about myself. My name is Peter Miller. I am an incoming second-year graduate student at the University of Minnesota in the Environmental Policy program. As I noted, I'm graduating next May, and among my hobbies, I am not originally from Minnesota, but I've really come to love all of the amazing parks and recreational activities that you can get up to out here. And before this, I was a park ranger at the National Park Service. So this is my first experience in any kind of planning capacity. So it's been a tremendous learning experience that has, it's just felt unparalleled. As you all know, the 2050 Comprehensive Plan update process is well underway. As you all know, the importance of these kind of plans that the Regional Planning Authority does every 10 years includes, of course, a lot of development of material to support communities in the development of their plans, such as, of course, the water supply plan. And so a big question that I came to ask along with a team here in environmental services is how can you enhance communications between the needs of these communities and then the long-range water planning and capacity needs. And so how can water considerations be more directly involved in long-term planning considerations? And we came to developing some materials. I came to support the development of some of these materials, such as the water chapter template and the how-to guide for water supply planning. One of the early experiences I had was being involved in the MOSAC meeting, or the Metropolitan Area Supply Advisory Committee. Just hearing some feedback from many of the community planners from all across the metropolitan area was really instrumental at developing some of these perspectives of what many of the planners are thinking about when they're thinking 25 years in the future of considering not only their water plans, but all of the other aspects of how water involves itself. So hearing some of the feedback from local planners, such as wanting sufficient resources and cross-collaboration, contingency planning, access to other communities' plans, and then, of course, prioritizing of requirements that might be conflicting with the different watershed and state requirements. And so by assisting with the development of the how-to guide that I included some examples of here, by having examples from different communities from the 2040 comprehensive plan, we were able to provide some example materials that communities will use for this next round of development to establish commonalities between communities, and of course recognize differences in approach. And then, as with every community in the metropolitan area, there are distinctive approaches, distinctive planning needs. And so I included a requirement, of course, and then 2 example communities that might be relevant for future planning. And then another part that I had helped to develop was the water chapter template. As you all know, water is so super important in so many different ways, and for a community to develop their water supply plans, we wanted to make sure that water was being considered front and center along with so many of the other important considerations at play. And so by developing these connections with the different plan elements, such as natural systems, transportation, I included some examples right here. We can better highlight water as an important consideration in the water chapter template. Of course, other similarities, such as with parks and trails, the protection of surface waters, with housing. As we all know, housing is similarly universal and so important as with water, and making sure that these considerations are not only equitable, sustainable, but important for the long-term planning considerations of the member communities in the region. And so development of housing needs that are concurrent with expected water demand, and then just analysis of affordable housing factored in alongside access to water resources. And so in developing these plans, we not only wanted to have just the empirical numbers considerations, but wanted to have a narrative explanation so that communities who are developing their comprehensive plan can follow along with how other communities that might have similar water planning needs or requirements were able to complete their own plans. And then, of course, the outcomes for these long-range plans will synthesize all the resources and considerations that communities are thinking of to build a resilient, prosperous, and prepared regional community. And then, of course, by 2050, the communities within the metropolitan area can look back and understand that these plans that they were able to develop were purposeful and impactful. Of course, the thing I kept thinking about throughout this internship is the importance of this kind of regional planning authority, and not only developing material that communities can use for their long-range planning, but also providing a medium that these communities can interact with each other to understand how to understand their own respective water planning considerations. And of course, this experience has been a tremendously impactful opportunity for myself. Like I said, I didn't know anything about water planning before I came into this internship. And so coming out of this, as I'm coming back to school just this next week, I'm going to have a lot to consider about why these water planning considerations are so important, not just for member communities in a metropolitan area like this, but for all of the ways that we think about long-range planning. And so I'm excited to be going back to school just on a week from today. And no doubt I'll have a lot to share about the importance of water supply planning with all of my classmates. And thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Questions? Councilmember Lindstrom.
So a year from now, you're a Humphrey grad and you get hired by, we'll say, a city of 15,000 people or so, and they say, Peter, you're in charge of this comp plan thing, the water part of it. What sort of tools do you think, you're sitting in your chair there in front of your computer, what do you think would just be the best tools, do you think, to get that rocking and rolling? Make it the easiest possible for you to do a great job.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. There were a lot of resources I poured through this summer that I thought would be really helpful for communities, smallest communities all the way up to the largest communities in this metro area. I think that having detailed explanations on how other communities came to their similar conclusions would be very helpful. It was helpful for me to understand, and I could imagine for communities to understand how they think about their own materials. It would be helpful to think through or to see how other planners in similar communities, in different communities, thought through their own plans, because, of course, a benefit of this kind of body is to work on the generations of experience to build up not only these kind of plans, but to make them better over time.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Was there anything that you learned that surprised you or that you weren't really expecting?
How much time do you have?
Well, you have 10 minutes from the next started, so.
There was a lot. I think there was, especially early on, as I was really trying to digest a lot of the material, I was reading a lot of comprehensive plans. And of course, there's so many differences. Every community is different. They have different water needs. They have different water supply and demand considerations. And those are, of course, expressed in how they write out their comprehensive plans. I think a part that surprised me is the kind of shared vision that a lot of communities have. It was very almost reassuring to see how hopeful a lot of communities were in developing plans that were resourceful, sustainable, allowing for the wide range of uncertainty that will come in the coming decades, especially considering all the other aspects like climate I mentioned. It was reassuring to think through how well thought through a lot of communities' plans were. And I think it was really impactful for me to see how I can have a part to play in this and for helping the Metropolitan Council out, and of course for, wherever my future professional career will take me as well.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Next up is Faizan Bhutto. Did I get that? Was I at least close?
Yeah, that was super close. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Faizan Bhutto, and my project/presentation is called Bridging SCADA and WAM Data for Proactive Asset Management. For just in case anyone in the audience does not know, SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, which is basically our operational data from our equipment, our sensors, etc. And our WAM basically stands for Work and Asset Management, which is our data related to our assets. Just a quick background about myself before I get started. I recently graduated from, recently graduated from DePaul University, where I currently went to grad school in data science. Did my concentration in computational methods. This was super recent, May 2025. And currently working as a business analyst intern with the asset management department. And my project was, again, on SCADA and WAM integration. And a few of my hobbies include business. By that, I basically mean everything about business. I'm obsessed with it. Whether it's a small business, whether it's a big corporation, whether it's a mom and pop shop or a startup. I'd love to know why they got started, what do they do, and if they're successful or if they're not, and what are the reasons behind their success or failures. I've been playing soccer all my life since I was a kid back in Pakistan, and I don't play it that often, but still, that's a really big interest. And last one was a super cliche, but I really enjoy hiking, really enjoy traveling, and my favorite city is Istanbul in Turkey. So after getting introduced to the Metro Plan and the work of the environmental division, I basically focused my project on bringing together two important data systems. Again, SCADA data and WAM data. SCADA being our operational data, WAM being our asset data, which includes our maintenance history, our ongoing maintenance, all the costs that are affiliated with our assets. And I chose to focus on centrifuges for two main reasons. Firstly, centrifuges are a really critical equipment and solids handling before incineration. And secondly, the data that I collected was more robust when it came to centrifuges. So that's why I selected them as my use case. And after cleaning and linking the data together in Power BI, which is the tool that I use for my project, I basically built dashboards that showed three important things. Firstly, which centrifuges had the most downtime. Secondly, which centrifuges, what type of work was being done on those centrifuges, whether that was more proactive work or whether that was more reactive work. And lastly, how much was it costing? And this let us see the full picture or the full story regarding the equipment instead of isolated pieces. So here's the main visual that I built. Right away, there's some first of all, this visual basically shows number of forced outage days for each centrifuge. There are 8 of them from the years 2017 till 2025. And right away, there are some big differences. I don't know if it's clear, but centrifuge 8, which is denoted as CF08, had the most number of outages, forced outages, during that period, almost 600 days, compared to, let's say, centrifuge 7, which had very few. And this kind of information seems super simple, but it's extremely helpful in helping us quickly is the important term over here, quickly identify where the major reliability issues may be hiding and which maybe exact equipment might ask for a closer attention by us. From there,
What's the definition of forced?
So there are 2 sort of outages. It's either you schedule an outage, so let's just take this centrifuge down and see if any work is upcoming. And forced outage is when it stops. There is a problem that it has to be forced.
Thank you.
Of course. And so from there, I basically created 2 drill-through pages, which in simple terms are basically detail pages. So for example, if a person is on the main dashboard over here, like you saw on the previous slide, and they're just thinking to themselves, why did centrifuge 8 has so many forced outage days? Can I get some possibly more detail on them? So there's basically an option where you can go and see more details. So this visual basically shows a couple of things. Firstly, this is more focused on centrifuge 5, just as an example. And we can see at the top visual, those are the top 10 most costly work tasks for that specific centrifuge. In this case, again, centrifuge 5. And also, along with that, it also shows which type of work was done on them, whether that was more proactive work or whether that was more reactive work. And on the bottom left chart, it shows majority of the work that was done during this period of 2017 until 2025 on centrifuge 5 in this example was more proactive, but there was a significant portion, about 35%, that was more reactive work. And on the bottom right side, the pie chart, that basically categorizes those work tasks into, for example, was it a replacement? Was it a repair? Was it a troubleshoot? And was it sampling? So this details basically helps us connect the outages to exact work or the actual type of work that was being done on them and the cost that was Metropolitan was bearing due to these repairs and all that. So this is the second drill-through page, or the details page, and this focus more on the reactive work. So this shows, in this example for centrifuge 8, all the work tasks and categorized by whether it was reactive. And in this case, all of the work tasks that were reactive for that specific centrifuge, whichever the user that is interacting with the dashboard can use. And over here, each work task also is linked directly to the WAMP system. So for example, if someone is looking at the dashboard, they want to see why was centrifuge 8 had a work task that costed $250,000. So they can basically click that link, and which will take them directly into the WAMP system, and they will be able to see even more details if they wish to. And together, and the visualization below that, that basically shows the trend of the forced outages versus the scheduled outages over time, again, from 2017 to 2025. And here we can see that some years had spikes in forced outages, specifically, for example, 2021, and which can possibly show us or highlight when equipment reliability issues were at their worst. So why does this matter? Today, if we start combining SCADA and RAM data together, it will not only help us plan better, it will also help us budget better, and possibly help us identify reliability issues or equipment issues comparatively earlier. And another advantage would be it would help the asset management department work much more closely together with the operations department as well. But right now, different departments, they work in separate system without a centralized data hub. And that makes it comparatively harder to see the full picture. And tomorrow, or aka the future, if we bring our data together in one place across systems, across equipments, across departments, we would be able to move more towards predictive maintenance. We would be able to forecast failures before they even happen and make smarter region-wide decisions for the Twin Cities based on shared data. And this project was just a really high-level sort of proof of concept of showing how powerful data, especially integrated data, can be, and showing how much it can help the council with planning better. And beyond the technical side, this internship was an amazing experience. It really helped me understand how wastewater treatment plants and facilities work. I generally had not much idea before I got to know about Metropolitan Council, especially the ES division. And so just understanding the immense amount of planning, immense amount of effort that goes into maintaining water quality in the Twin Cities region. And just on a lighter note, also an interesting fact that I found out that not all the flushable paper towels are actually flushable. So I've not been doing that anymore. And more importantly, it was just an amazing experience working with a few of the most knowledgeable, kind, and supportive people in the ES department, and even other departments as well, my fellow interns, my fellow Met Scholar interns, and fellow ES interns as well. And all of this combined made this experience a really meaningful one for me. And before I end this, I think this quote really sums my project up well, that data is only as valuable as the decision that it drives. And that was all that my project was about. Not to just collect data, but actually use it to make important decisions, faster decisions, save money, improve reliability, and strengthen collaboration. And would love to ask if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I just had a question. It said, based on your feedback, it was 25% of the reasons it was shut down was because of specific trouble.
Correct.
What exactly? Was it paper towels or was there another? I was just wondering what the primary cause.
Thank you, Chair and committee members for the question. So I was mainly working with the data that was in the WAM system and the data models in that. So I would not have a specific idea why they were categorized as a repair or trouble or any other different categories, but those were just like the categories that the data or the database administrators have made. So I personally would not have that much information on the exact reasons.
Do you think that would help their process if they had more specific data so that they could identify what were the key problems that were reoccurring?
Yes, thank you, Chair and committee members. That would definitely for sure help. And traditionally in organizations, there's a centralized data warehouse, which is basically a repository where all the data from different departments, whether that's even transit, whether that's pretty much all the departments, they have data stored in the data warehouse where it's already cleaned, already processed, formatted, and it's just ready to use. And that data is basically used by different departments really fastly, and reporting and analysis and data mining, all those processes. So if you have a really good centralized data repository, it would be tremendously helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for yours.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you for this. I know most of the data you talked about was historical. Do you see an opportunity to take that data warehouse and apply it to real-time data, sensors and the equipment or stuff like that? Would that help? Would that make us more reactive to the issues?
Thank you, Chair and committee members. That would be an amazing step. That would help us move tremendously fast because we would have all the data cleaned and transformed because as far as I've seen right now, different departments are sort of doing their own thing. They have their maybe data stored in maybe some Excel sheets, some have data models, but nothing is sort of combined and formatted and unified across departments. If that's the case, it would definitely help us move much faster because we would be able to come up with not just these reports on ad hoc basis, but also apply my background is data science, so we can even do some predictions in the future and make sure that we're planning much better and accordingly and budgeting according to different domains and all that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Lindstrom.
That sounds like a small business that you should start. Sell it to the Met Council and we'll buy it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Next up, Lucy Jones.
Hello, committee chair and committee members. My name is Lucy Jones. I'm a junior studying at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, environmental engineering, and I've had a great time this summer working with our research and development department, the department that supports all the plant processes. With specifically, my project was Blue Lake phosphorus removal optimization. But like Evan, I had an opportunity to help look at Seneca chlorine demand. A fun fact about me is I've swam with whale sharks. Blue Lake is our water resource recovery facility in Shakopee. You can see the aerial image on the right. It discharges to the Minnesota River. So the reason phosphorus removal is so important is because it can have a negative effect on our river ecosystems. And the way that Blue Lake removes phosphorus from the system is with phosphorus accumulating bacteria. The bacteria eat the phosphate to use as energy storage. And the way that this works is that most waste in the facility is removed by gravity settling. The solids settle to the bottom, but phosphorus doesn't tend to sink, but the bacteria do sink. So when the bacteria eat the phosphorus, they sink together so that the water can move on without the phosphorus and without the bacteria. But to do this process most effectively, the bacteria need carbon as food. There we go. It looks like there is a slide out of place. My apologies. I'll go back to that in a second. So the problem at Blue Lake is that there's a new permit limit set to be implemented into 2037. Currently, our permit limit is around 110 kilograms per day of total phosphorus concentration, but the new permit limit is more than half of that. So if you take a look at the graph on the right, Blue Lake's average annual phosphorus concentration is in blue, and the new permit limit is in orange. As you can see, Blue Lake has often been above this new permit limit. So that's why it's crucial for Blue Lake to consider how to remove the phosphorus more effectively. Another problem is that Blue Lake often experiences phosphorus spikes. This is because an industry that contributes a lot of carbon in their wastewater to the treatment plant has periodic shutdowns. So whenever they shut down, the wastewater has less carbon, and when it has less carbon for the bacteria to eat, it removes less phosphorus, which results in a phosphorus spike. We also call these facility or plant upsets. So my project focus is first predicting phosphorus spikes with the aerobic phosphorus uptake test, and second, removing phosphorus more effectively with ferric chemical treatment and carbon supplementation. So ferric chemical treatment removes phosphorus similar to how bacteria remove phosphorus. The ferric forms a solid with the phosphorus and they sink together. Adding carrier water, or this is cleaned wastewater, improves the mixing of ferric with the wastewater. But if you add too much carrier water, you might actually have a situation where the ferric forms a solid or a precipitate with the carrier water rather than with the phosphorus. So Blue Lake was looking at, does the precipitation of ferric with carrier water have an impact on the phosphorus removal with ferric? So taking a look first at the phosphorus aerobic uptake test. This is a test where I took a sample of wastewater with bacteria in it. I let it sit for 30 minutes and I measured how much phosphorus was removed over that 30 minutes. How much phosphorus did the bacteria eat in that 30 minutes? In the data in the orange on the graph, this represents the uptake rate during that test, during tests previously in the past year, just an average. The first one shows what the average uptake rate is during normal conditions at the plant. So it's around 10. But whenever you have that industry that contributes carbon, whenever they have that shutdown and we have a phosphorus spike, the uptake rate in the past has been less than 5. So this is a good indicator, a good pattern that we could use to predict the phosphorus spikes, because when there's a phosphorus spike, the uptake rate tends to be half of the normal condition. So in summary, if you do an aerobic uptake rate test and you have a rate that's less than 5, you can know that the plant is likely in an upset condition. It's likely going to have a phosphorus spike soon. So in the data in the blue, this is a test that I performed where I took a sample when there was a phosphorus spike happening at the plant. And I performed the test, and then I performed the test after adding carbon. I wanted to see how adding carbon to that sample would impact the test result. And as you can see, the rate of adding carbon to that test brought it back to normal conditions. So essentially, adding carbon can bring the plant conditions back to normal during a plant upset. So this is a possible way that we can improve our phosphorus removal. So if the plant wants to purchase carbon and supplement it to the plant, they could buy micro-C, which it would cost probably around $18,000 a day for every day of phosphorus spike. And if we were to count the number of phosphorus spikes that we've had in the past year, it would be $1.7 million a year. So if the plant doesn't want to consider purchasing carbon, they can also consider generating their own carbon through fermentation. This is something that I looked into a little bit this summer, but there's still a lot of experiments and testing that we need to do to fully look into it. In the meantime, the plant is looking at controlling those phosphorus spikes with ferric chemical treatment. So specifically with diluting ferric with carrier water, I found out that precipitation occurs at a ratio of when you have 1,250 milliliters of carrier water for every 1 milliliter of ferric. In plant terms, this is about 1,250 gallons per minute of carrier water for every 1 gallon per minute of ferric. So Blue Lake currently does not have the capacity to provide that much carrier water for the amount of ferric. This is good news for them because they're not likely to actually get precipitation in their system. In the two pictures on the slide, you have on the right a picture of ferric with carrier water precipitated, and on the left you have ferric that's not precipitated and is dissolved in the carrier water. So as long as Blue Lake does not get up to 1,250 ratio of carrier water to ferric, then they will not form a precipitate. But just to see if precipitation does affect phosphorus removal, I took a sample of precipitated ferric and not precipitated ferric and added it to a sample of wastewater and measured how much phosphorus was removed. So during this test, I had 3 trials. On the right, you see the phosphorus removed amount of the precipitated ferric, and on the left is the phosphorus removed amount of the not precipitated ferric. Overall, I saw 20 to 30% less phosphorus removed with precipitated ferric than with not precipitated ferric. So in summary, the precipitated ferric is less effective at removing phosphorus because it's formed a solid with that carrier water, so it's not as likely to form a solid with the phosphorus as well, which makes sense. So in conclusion, Blue Lake should not try to get they should not use precipitated ferric, but the good news is that they're not likely to use precipitated ferric because their dilution ratio, the amount of carrier water they can provide is maybe up to 200, not up to that 1,250 dilution ratio. So I've really enjoyed my opportunity this summer. I love planning, preparing, and conducting experiments. I love learning hands-on. So I got to learn so much information on a variety of wastewater topics. Talking to my coworkers and the Met Council employees, I explored what my future career would look like. And working with my coworkers in R&D has been fun, building relationship and learning to work well together. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Is there any questions?
Questions? Councilmember Lee.
Madam Chair, not a question, but just a general comment for all of the wonderful staff and especially the department directors and heads like Lisa and whoever else is supporting the interns. It's always great to hear the wonderful work they do, and I know that in the past we've had interns stay on and become full-time employees, so thanks for your hard work for us, and we hope that you stay engaged in the future, so thank you.
Councilmember Lindstrom.
Second that, and I'm just curious to know, did these results surprise you, or was it kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting?
Thank you for the question, committee chair and committee members. The results for the ferric precipitation did surprise us. We were surprised that the ratio at which ferric precipitation happened was so high. We were expecting that it might be possible for the plant to produce precipitated ferric, but that's good news for us. As for the aerobic uptake rate tests, we were hoping that supplementing the carbon would bring it back to normal conditions. But in terms of predicting phosphorus spikes, this is something that we had looked into the past, where taking samples from a different location on the plant was recommended by Clean Water Services. But when we tried that location, doing the test at that location, we saw less variation, less of a pattern that would be useful for predicting phosphorus spikes. But when I looked at the data from this particular location at the end of the anaerobic zone, that pattern was much more identifiable, so that was useful for us to learn that rather than what Clean Water Services said, using that other sample location was much more useful for us.
So $18,000 a day with, do you know what industry it is that is shutting down and causing, or, making things out of whack?
Thank you for the question, committee chair and committee members. Yes, Michael Foods is a specific industry, and once we figured out that they were the ones causing this carbon deficit in the system, we've been working with them for them to let us know when the shutdowns are happening so that we can prepare for them. But they're going through, this is very preliminary, so they haven't had, there's a few times where they forgot to tell us, and so we need to have some other system in place to make sure that we're on top of those phosphorus spikes.
I know with other industries, we've come up with other ways, like sort of banking some of their stuff with Kemp's Foods. We have them truck the way to the Empire plant so that we can meter it in at a certain spot in the treatment, because it uses less oxygen that way. Is there a way that we could sort of smooth out the flows from Michael's Foods to have less disruption?
Thank you for the question, committee chair. I am unsure if I can say anything conclusive on that. I would say talk to George Sprouse or Hannah Molitor is my specific manager. I know that that's not the system that they have in place, but that's a great question.
Thank you. Anything else?
I was just going to say, talking about our permit, the limits there, not only is it the right thing to do to stay within those permit limits, but also it is like the second thing that we reference on every marketing communications that come out of environmental services, just that we have maintained our, from year after year, our within our permit limits. Some plants for
30-some
decades.
years.
Yeah, 30-some years for some plants. And so it's just incredibly important work. So thanks for helping us. And that goes for all of you. Thanks for helping us.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and thank you to all of the interns. You guys did great work, and we hope that you'll want to come back and work for us some more. Thank you. So we have one more information item, which is the 2026 capital program with Mr. Colvin.
And others. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Today's last information item, that was a hard act to follow. Today, the last information item is to go over and review the 6-year 2026 through 2031 Environmental Services Capital Program. For the record, my name is Kyle Colvin. I am the manager of the Wastewater Planning and Community Programs Group. With me today is
Renee Heflin.
And Adam Gordon.
Adam Gordon.
Said that like a question.
Well, I threw a curve at her there. She didn't know I was going to.
I'm wondering if the first item is going to be replacing centrifuge number 8.
Well, it seems to be working after all of that mess in 2021.
Hopefully.
So I'll start off by providing a high-level review of the 6-year capital program. I'll identify some of the projects that are included in that 6-year program that were in response to local comprehensive plan needs, that are basically projects related to capacity needs, either expansion of facilities to accommodate redevelopment. In one case, we have a project that is acquiring a facility to provide service to another community for the first time. And then we will review additions to both the water resource recovery facility and interceptor programs, and then wrap up with a short overview of where the schedule is going forward from today. The capital program takes into account and consideration the Water Resources Policy Plan, the policies that direct when and where and under what circumstances we provide services to the 111 communities that we provide regional wastewater service to. And we also incorporate the customer level of service. And there's a number of measures related to the customer level service, whereby the decisions that are made that go into prioritizing projects in the capital program touch upon being fiscally responsible, protecting human health and the environment by making sure that we maintain regulatory compliance with projects related to treatment standards, and also timing those improvements at a time and deliver them at a time when they are needed, whether it's through regulatory compliance needs or for accommodating future growth. By definition, the council's definition of the capital program consists of 2 parts. The 6-year program includes the authorized capital program, or the ACP. This is, and then in addition to that is the capital improvement program, which is referred to as the CIP. The ACP is a 6-year budget authorization at the program level for projects where funding sources have been identified and secured. And the first year of the 6-year ACP is referred to as the capital budget. So for this particular program, the capital budget would reflect the authorization for 2026. The CIP consists of future projects where the funding sources have been identified, but yet project budgeting has not been authorized, basically because there's no need to do so at this time. They're future projects that occur later in the 6-year program. This slide here represents a graph that depicts the components of the ACP and the CIP for each year of the 6-year capital program. The requested ACP is based on the necessary authorization to implement projects that include active projects, and that includes past authorizations, and future projects in which design and construction contracts will be entered into in 2026. The full amount of those anticipated contract values must be authorized, even though some of those expenses covering those contracts will occur over multiple years. In order for us to enter into a contract, the full contract value has to be authorized. As a rule of thumb, nearly all of the first 3 years of the 6-year program is covered under the authorization to cover those commitments and contract obligations that will be realized next year in 2026. The dark blue bars represent the annual authorized amounts of the program. The light blue bars in this chart are the estimated CIP requests or identified needs, and they're based on cash flows that we anticipate for those years represented in this chart. And they also represent future authorizations when the need for the design and construction appears in the future program years. The red line on this chart represents 60% of the total cash flow needs, so that's the cash flow needs of both the ACP and the CIP, and the 60% has been the historic average spend levels that we've seen in the past few years. In 2024, that percentage was a little bit below 60%. In years prior, it's been a little bit higher than 60%. But on average, it has fluctuated between that 60 and 70, 72%. The increase in the ACP that is represented by this chart represents projects that were delayed during the latter part of the COVID years. Some of those projects at that time, planning and designs activities were initiated, and now we're getting to the point where the construction of those projects will be occurring in 2026 and after. And there's also the increase in the cash flows as represented in this chart represents or reflects a number of large projects that will be entering the construction phase starting in 2026. We have the Metro Solids project, the 4th incinerator project. We have the Crow River Water Resource Recovery Facility that we will begin some of the design and construction activities starting in 26. And also we have a project in Fridley, which is the new lift station or L32 project that will consist of phasing out an existing lift station and relocating the location of that lift station on the east side of the Mississippi River. Also included in the increase in the cash flow assumptions are assumptions for inflation. And the 40% that is not represented in the assumed spend really covers project needs that have some uncertainty in terms of the bid amounts. So it covers the ability to entertain and respond to bids that might come in a little higher than what we originally estimated. It also covers, again, additional inflation. It assumes that there's no capacity shortages for contracting and construction industry capacity. And also it doesn't reflect what we commonly see or typically experience in terms of slower delivery of projects due to staffing or unforeseen need for new time-sensitive projects. So if a project comes up that we weren't originally anticipating in the program, that 40% buffer, if you will, allows us to prioritize a project. For instance, if we did a condition assessment on an interceptor and found that it was on the verge of collapsing, we could initiate a project much more quickly if the budget authorization has already been approved by the council. This table here just summarizes the ACP. The current authorized program is $1.84 billion approximately. There are a number of adjustments to the existing projects to address project scope, increases in project scope, inflation, and some acceleration of timing. That represents an add of $91 million to the ACP. There are 41 new projects that we are proposing to add to the 6-year program. That reflects an increase of $285 million. And in 2024, we completed 21 projects, which allows us to remove those associated project costs out of the ACP, and that reflects a reduction of $38 million. So if you take the existing and make those adjustments for the 2026 ACP, the 26 ACP represents approximately $2.18 billion. That $2.18 billion reflects an additional $379 million of requested authorizations on top of what we currently have. This increase reflects, again, those large projects that are coming in the project pipeline and entering construction phase. And it also, again, reflects a response and estimation of future inflation for those projects. This project, this slide here represents the total capital program. Again, that's the ACP and the CIP. In 2026, the ACP, again, we're estimating or seeking authorization for that $2.177 billion of authorization. On top of that, the program represents $963 million of projects that we're not seeking authorization at this time. But again, projects that sometime in the next 6 years we anticipate we will be requesting authorization for. And the first year of the ACP or the budget for next year is $406 million. The council categorizes its capital program under 3 objectives. This is consistent with all of the division capital programs, parks, transit. Under these objectives, there are 3 categories. There's preserving assets through rehabilitation or replacement. There's growth projects that reflect projects to meet additional capacity needs for new growth or redevelopment by increasing facility size or extending infrastructure into new areas. And then the third objective is improving service quality by responding to higher regulatory treatment standards, enhancing system reliability, making safety improvements, conserving energy and other resources, and generating energy. Under the 2026 program, those objectives are broken down by asset preservation, 53%, expansion or growth projects by 23%, and quality improvements of 24%.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. That expansion number is getting bigger than it has been, right? Because of the work that we're doing, particularly on the Metro plant and then some other new plants.
Yes, Chair and members of the committee, that's correct. The Metro Solids, a portion of that is growth related. We've got interceptors that we are building to accommodate additional growth. We've got the acquisition of the Savage interceptor, which I'll be covering, which is entirely to serve a new community for sewer service. So those numbers do shift from time to time. Preservation usually carries the brunt of the overall objective in the environmental services. But we do see that growth kind of ebb and tide from time to time.
Thank you.
You're correct. And then environmental services, we also break out projects by type, whether it's the conveyance system, interceptor system, or by treatment facilities. Generally speaking, historically, that fluctuates between 60-40. Some years it'll be close to 60% for interceptors, and other years that 60% will be in the treatment works. But normally speaking, it ranges in that 60-40. For the 26 program, it's pretty close to being even, with the interceptors comprising the majority of work of 53% and the treatment plants being 47%. The Environmental Services Capital Program is funded by three primary funding sources. We've got the Public Facilities Authority, or PFA loans. These are very low interest. They carry very low interest rates. They're very attractive. We do anticipate requesting $50 million next year in 2026. There have been some challenges with getting some of our originally identified PFA projects to be eligible due to the Buy and Build America requirements. There is a waiver process that you can apply for. We've got a couple of pretty significant projects that we applied for waivers back in October of last year, and we were recently notified that they were going to give us a waiver for those two projects, essentially due to a lack of response from the EPA. So that's kind of a win for us because it'll take a pretty large advantage of that low interest loan for those two projects. For this year, 2025, we did receive a loan for $32 million. We originally had identified the need of 50, but because of the lack of a legislative bonding bill last year, the PFA wouldn't allow us to add new projects. They lived up to the commitment of covering the loans for the projects that were already on the intended use plan. But so with the removal of, or without being able to add those new projects, our loan dropped down to the 32. But again, for next year, we plan on taking full advantage of that $50 million loan threshold that we can. And it is important to note, this is actually in follow-up, Chair, to a question you raised a couple of years ago, is, why do you just limit your request to $50 million? And that's because under the program, loans greater than $50 million carry a higher interest rate, which is very comparable to the GO bond interest rate. And there's a lot more requirements with the PFA loans. BABA is one. There's also there's also requirements for facility plan development. And so with that higher interest rate for funds, a loan greater than 50%, it's much more attractive just to use the GO bonds for funding those projects. And then with the GO bonds, GO bonds carry an interest rate that's based basically on prime plus some points. Because the council has a AAA bond rating, we get very good, very low interest rates on GO bonds. And the 2025 and 2026 funding need is based on the spending level and a foreseen need to replenish the funding source pool likely in early 2026. And then the third source of funding is pay-as-you-go. This is revenues that are set aside each year to pay for capital improvements on projects where it might not make sense to take out a 20-year loan through GO or through PFA. And they're usually projects that are small in value or cost, or they may also be projects where the life cycle or life expectancy doesn't meet that full 20-year, but at least it has to meet a 10-year. So for this year, that PAYGO reserve amount was $11 million. We are proposing to increase that by $2 million for 2026 to take further advantage of maximizing that aspect of offsetting debt in lieu of acquiring debt for bond. We plan to increase that PAYGO to basically do as the name implies, pay for those projects as we go. And as I alluded to a little bit earlier, there's some projects that were identified through local comprehensive plans. We've got the Blaine Interceptor Relief Project, which actually is a new interceptor that will provide service to the western portion of Lino Lakes. That portion of Lino Lakes is currently served through the Blaine Interceptor, But this new facility will redirect the service for Lino Lakes through this new interceptor facility, hence the name. We're relieving capacity or recovering some of the capacity in the Blaine interceptor to continue to provide additional capacity for Blaine. Then we have the Savage trunk sewer acquisition, which I alluded to earlier. The City of Credit River came in last comprehensive plan requesting regional service for the first time. If everything works out correctly, they'll be the 112th community in our list of communities that we provide service to. And then we've got the Crow River plant that will replace and provide additional capacity for the city of Rogers and the ability to serve other communities around Rogers, another growth project. And then we've got the St. Paul River crossing, which basically is the Riverview siphon that provides service for for the West Side Flats area, which is just south of the office here across the Mississippi River. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Renee.
So, quick question.
Yes.
Quick question on that. The Blaine project. Is it going to have an impact on Blaine, or is it more an impact on Lino Lakes?
Yep.
Or both?
Yeah, Chair.
The reason why I'm
Councilmember
presenting to the Blaine City Council in a week, so I'm wondering if it'll come up or I should bring it up.
Well, they are aware of the project. It's actually a little bit of both. The primary purpose of that project is a new pipe to redirect existing service that Lino Lakes now gets through the interceptor that serves Blaine, and then also provide additional capacity to accommodate additional growth in Lino Lakes. And then through that redirection of the existing service from Lino Lakes, it frees up additional capacity for additional growth opportunities in Blaine.
Fantastic. If you don't mind putting that in a bulleted form, I'm sending it my way, that would be much appreciated.
And maybe a little map, too.
Yeah, maps are good.
Yep, can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. My name is Renee Heflin. I'm manager of plant engineering. And this afternoon, my role is to review the capital program for the water, changes to the capital program for the water resource recovery facilities. So this is a list of the 11 programs that currently cover multiple capital projects for the water resource recovery facilities. As you see here, in 2026, we are closing 2 programs where construction is complete, items 1 and 3, Metro Rehabilitation and Facilities Improvements, and then also Empire Solids Improvements. We're opening 2 new programs to initiate planning for future rehabilitation and improvements projects, items 10 and 11. Also for Metro and Empire. These programs are being opened with small budgets for planning studies. There are 5 slides, 1 for each, 5 more slides, 1 for each program where additional funds are being requested to fund construction projects. Program 8062, Metro Solids Improvements, includes the addition of a 4th incinerator and rehabilitation and improvements of solids auxiliary systems. The 2026 through 2031 capital program includes an additional $32 million to fund updated scope and cost for rehabilitation and improvement of solids auxiliary systems. This is project 806211. This project constructs near-term reliability improvements ahead of a more comprehensive renewal project. An additional $10 million is requested to fund cost for other contracted services such as special inspections and construction administration staff time to support the 4th incinerator project. That's 806230. The 4th incinerator did not qualify for PFA funding, so Program 8062 is bond funded. Renewal of the existing 3 incinerators, which was previously included in Program 8062, has been moved to the new Metro program so that it can be resubmitted to the PFA for funding approval. Program 8078, Regional Plant Improvements, includes relatively small projects at each of the individual regional plants to address near-term needs. The 2026 through 2031 capital program includes an additional $21 million to fund updated scope and cost for St. Croix Valley Water Resource Recovery Facility Upgrades Project 807811, and an additional $14 million for anticipated future projects. Those would be the new project list. Project 807811 includes new bar screens and compactors, rehabilitation of the gravity thickener, replacement of primary sludge pumps, aeration, HVAC and electrical improvements, a new UV system, road reconstruction, and a new alum storage and feed system, all for St. Croix Valley. Program 8089 continues asset renewal projects at the Metropolitan Water Resource Recovery Facility following the 8059 program, which is being closed in 2026. The 2026 through 2031 capital program includes an additional $24 million to fund updated scope and cost for current capital projects, including renewal of the effluent pumping station, odor control renewal and improvements, also primary sludge pump renewal at Metro. Program 8097, Blue Lake Water Resource Recovery Facility Improvements, includes capacity expansion in primary treatment and solids treatment, asset preservation projects for liquids and solids treatment systems, and quality improvements that will allow the facility to achieve lower effluent phosphorus. The 2026 capital program requests an additional $29 million to fund updated scope and cost for these capital projects. Program 8099 provides for design and construction of the new Crow River Water Resource Recovery Facility in Rogers, Minnesota. The new facility, which will have an initial capacity of 3 million gallons per day, will relocate service provided by the existing 1.3 million gallon per day Rogers Wastewater Treatment Facility, which the council has operated since 2019. Crow River will serve long-term growth in the communities of Rogers, Dayton, and Corcoran, as well as free up capacity in the Elm Creek sanitary sewer that conveys flow to the Metropolitan Water Resource Recovery Facility. The 2026 through 2031 capital program includes an additional $2.1 million to fund updated scope and cost for consultant services and preliminary work such as site preparation and geotechnical exploration. Adam?
Thank you, Renee. Committee members, Chair. My name's Abner Gordon. I'm the manager of the Interceptor Engineering Group. So I've showed this slide previously for the last couple of years. I just went back and reviewed this slide in our 2023 through 2028 program, and we had 17 projects listed. In our 2024 through 2029 program, we had 17 projects listed again, noting that none of these included planning. In our 2025 through 2030, we had 24 projects listed. And here in our 2026 through 2031, we've listed 30 projects, all which include design or construction. So we're moving a lot of projects into design and construction. So none of this includes the planning for new projects. And I'm not going to read off all these projects. There is way too many of them. I noticed I'm short a few in there as it is. But the projects generally cover the entire metropolitan area from St. Bonifacius to Woodbury. And I don't know what to do next year. We'll have to come up with a different way of conveying this information instead of listing out projects, but we'll come up with a way.
I would just note that you cut off the southern part of Empire's service area there.
And when we have projects down there, that'll change the scale of the map, which will throw everything off, and it'll be really unreadable, yes.
I'm a little sensitive to being cropped off.
Oh, I'm
of
sorry
maps.
about that. I've also included this slide in previous presentations, and it's a good slide. I always like to review how we enter projects into the capital program. On the left, you can see a table, and we have consequences of failure from severity, and follows our organizational levels of service. And basically, it ranges from everything that's manageable to unmanageable. Our likelihood of failures is a determination that comes directly from our condition assessment programs, and it ranges from excellent to failing. For example, you'll hear in our presentations, and the presentations going forward, as part of our pipe assessment, if somebody refers to something as poor condition, that means it has a predicted failure within 5 to 10 years, as opposed to certain, which has a structurally failed pipe or that may or may not have already collapsed, has severe defects, and requires immediate action. So you'll hear jargon like condition 5 pipe or condition 4 pipe. So condition 5 pipe is one that needs to be addressed right away. The likelihood or condition data is gathered throughout the year in any one of our 5 condition assessment programs that we currently have in place. And the work is done by our operations staff, maintenance staff, and engineering staff. We typically follow the industry standards for assigning likelihood ratings. And then once a year, the engineering operation leads, managers, and maintenance staff review the consequence ratings and consider the level of service factors. And then the overall risk is computed by simply taking the product of the consequence and likelihood ratings. And for this year, as was with the previous year, areas identified having a risk of 16 or higher are entered into the capital improvement program. And so those notations in red for consequence and likelihood, if you have a major consequence, likely you're going to put it in the capital program. One of these years we'll start working on scores that are less than that. But you'll hear a lot more about this in our Interceptor System Condition Assessment Program, which I will graciously come on September 23rd to present to all of you. Looking forward to that. In the past years, we also showed specific projects that we're adding to each program area. We have, I believe, 8 program areas. This year, I'm taking a little bit different tactic because we're adding, as Kyle mentioned, a lot of new projects. But to give you a flavor of what's going on in each of the areas, we've listed out the interceptors, and I'm going to give you some data. So for the West Area Program, 8028, we have some work that's coming to completion, such as the St. Bonifacius Lift Station and Force Main Renewal Project, which has been under construction for a few years here. But the program still has some large projects, such as the Orono L59 Force Main improvements that's nearing design completion. The program is seeing a shift with only 1,400 feet of 8 to 36-inch pipe that is needing renewal. This pipe is located in Minnetrista, Minnetonka, Shorewood, and Excelsior. So we're requesting that we add $1 million to this program to cover those initial costs. The 8055 lift station program has had a boost since last year. We've added 14 lift stations to the capital improvement program. These lift stations are located across the metro in 11 different communities. In some cases, we just needed further condition assessment as to the capacity of those lift stations, testing and modeling, and further study. And some others, we need some additional work on criticality and making sure that we well define those projects. Entering these projects in the program is necessary to provide the resources we need for planning or capacity assessments. And the overall program request is to add $52 million to this program. For the 8056 meter station improvements, we're adding 4 new projects. 5 communities are affected by these meters, which includes Woodbury, Maplewood, White Bear Township, Adams Heights, and Golden Valley. The addition of 4 to 6 meters every year has been fairly consistent, and the overall program request is to add $5.5 million to the program. Condition assessments evaluated this past year have shown a significant need for new investments in the 8086 North area improvements. 13 communities are affected: St. Louis Park, Centerville, Vadnais Heights, Little Canada, New Brighton, Mounds View, Fridley, Anoka, White Bear Lake, White Bear Township, Roseville, Brooklyn Park, and Plymouth. The work identified includes capacity assessment, cleaning, rehabilitation, and replacement of over 60,000 feet of 8 to 96-inch interceptor pipe. The requested amount of $67 million is the largest addition to the interceptor program. The 8088 St. Paul Interceptor Improvements Program has 7 new projects that are included. The work identified includes rehabilitation of 4,000 feet of 15 to 48-inch interceptor pipe, and the request is to add to the program $4 million. The 8090 Interceptor System Support Program includes a large variety of project needs across the metro, work to coordinate council's facilities by community street upgrades or from community street upgrades, and the programmatic work in assessing facilities. And some of the larger work that's included in this program includes deep tunnel cleaning and assessment, which is done once every 10 years, and we're coming up on those years and need to complete the designs for that work. This program also includes much needed odor control work, such as assessments and the chemical odor control improvements. The request is to add $31 million in budget for the next 6 years. There is 7 interceptor pipe renewal projects and the closure of 4 inactive emergency relief structures included in the 8092 Minneapolis Interceptor Program. The interceptor renewal includes evaluation and rehabilitation of over 8,200 feet of 33 to 54-inch pipe. The emergency relief structures were previously assessed and determined to be no longer of use. And the closure will limit trespass of individuals into the interceptor system, which has become problematic and presents a significant risk to the organization. The request is to add $15.6 million in budget to the program for the next 6 years. And then finally, 3 new projects have been identified for addition into the 8095 South Area Program. These projects include the coordination and relocation and rehabilitation of over 8,400 feet of 18 to 27-inch interceptor pipe. A significant project in this program is the relocation of Force Main 8560 in Savage in coordination with MnDOT's plans to reconstruct Highway 13 and remove the at-grade crossings. And the request is to add $49.5 million to this program budget. And with this, I get to pass the clicker back to Kyle.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Just to wrap up here, this is the overall schedule for the council to get its unified capital program through the approval process. Today being the 26th of August, this is the informational meeting, information presentation to the Environment Committee. On September 3rd, each division is supposed to submit its 6-year capital CIP to RA Finance. Then on October 8th, each division will make its presentation to the council, I think through the Management Committee, I believe. And then the council will release its Unified Capital Program for public comment and review. On the 22nd of October, there will be an adoption of that public comment on the budgets. And then at the last council meeting of the year, that's usually that first or the second Wednesday, typically in December. They usually cancel the one near the holidays. The council will adopt its unified 2026 program budget and levies.
What is ISLT?
Integrated Servant Leadership Team. That's, you're sitting next to one of the members. There's another one sitting behind me. It's the upper management of environmental services.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
It was a very detailed presentation, a lot of good information there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any follow-up questions? I believe they said something about that we were going to switch the meetings and actually do the budget on December 3rd in place of a committee of the whole for,
Oh, okay.
so that
Not aware
last
of
one might be wrong. Councilmember Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. This might be for Adam. If these lift stations are, when they're under construction or being fixed and people are trespassing into them, are we setting up like kind of roadblock or fences around so folks can kind of stay out?
So we experience trespassing all over our system. My reference to the emergency relief structures there's approximately a dozen emergency relief structures throughout the Twin Cities. They're typically near the river. And they offer kind of a unique opportunity for our urban splunkers to crawl up the stormwater outfalls and into the structures. Another name that was once used for these structures is regulators. It's where wastewater was allowed to spill into the river to protect the system back in the day when that was a common happening. We since reduced I&I throughout the system. A lot of the regulators no longer spill. In fact, we are one of 2 permittee holders in the entire nation that's actually ended our sanitary sewer overflow permit with EPA, and they wanted us to change the name of regulator to emergency relief structures. So I get to say that every time we talk about emergency relief structures. So those have been a particularly vulnerable area of attack. It's where individuals can get in. They go through all lengths to get into our system, but in those areas we're particularly vulnerable. And when they do get into our system, there are places we have either electrical gear or mechanical gear, and they could do quite a bit of environmental havoc, if not hurt themselves. So we're anxious to close those facilities.
All right, thank you.
So there's only 2 places in the whole country that don't have overflows anymore? What's the other one?
St. Paul and Minneapolis. We had a permit with St. Paul. We had a permit with Minneapolis, joint permits. Lisa's probably more familiar with this, but we've managed, those are the only 2 permits in the nation that have been closed.
So
we no longer are we no longer have an SSO system.
We're ahead of everybody.
We are ahead of everybody. I
That's
like to tell
awesome.
people that.
Cool, thank you.
Another way to look at that is that we treat all the wastewater that gets sent to us on the whole.
That's important. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And since I'm not really the chair, I don't have a report. And do any committee members have things they want to share? General Manager.
Okay, I've got a few quick highlights, I guess, it would be a good way to call them. Councilmember Lindstrom pointed out the recent awards for compliance. I missed the last meeting because I was attending the summer conference for National Association of Clean Water Agencies, and that's where they hand out the peak awards. And so it's exciting, and it's something we like to celebrate. So we're starting a round of meetings, and including food and spending time with staff to appreciate the accomplishment that it's taken a lot of people to make possible, and it helps with our reputation of being capable at providing a service as important as wastewater treatment. So all of our facilities had 100% compliance last year, and of course you can see by the postcards some of the ones that have had a very long-running history of that. And Hastings is at the top, and there's only a couple other facilities in the country that are better than that, and it's only by a year or two. So we're very close to the very top. Also, if you're state fair goers, I know you're not all, but if you are, make sure you stop at the environmental building, the eco exhibit. We've got our O-Poop exhibit, which is very popular, and we've got 70 staff that are covering shifts to be able to staff that around the clock, and it's very popular. I'll say that they are all saying it was really fun, but also exhausting because there's so much activity and interest in the exhibit. And another little plus on that is we won a silver award for special events in the Minnesota Association of Government Communications Northern Lights contest. So there's an appeal for our poop exhibit that goes beyond the youngsters that stop and get excited. We also had a recent partnership with Hamlin for helping teachers so they can teach our upcoming citizens how to appreciate the built water cycle, which we all know is really important. And another thing that I think is very cool is the Central States Water Environment Association recently hosted a meeting here in the Twin Cities, and they had 130 attendees who visited our Metro plant and our Seneca plant. It was focused on solids and incineration. So, you know, in terms of across the country, our fluid beds were one of the first to be built, and they continue to be a good model for others to look to for exceptional air quality improvements. So staff's doing a great job looking for ways to serve this region in great ways. And that's my report, my highlights for tonight.
Lots of good news. That's awesome. With no further business to come before us, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.